welcome back to What's On Tonight, a podcast with elaborate, quirky, and unpredictable conversations about TV, movies, and more. I'm Becky.
I'm Mandy.
Tonight we are coming to you with another special episode. We have with us today Ambar Martinez. Ambar plays Nurse Kim on the Pitt. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm very, very excited.
Us too. It means so much when people take time out of their day to chat with us. So thank you so much. And we are glad to have you and hope we don't scare you off future interviews with people.
No.
All right, so we'll dive right into the questions. First question, and this has become an actual question that seems to be popping up with all of the 3 interviews that we've done at this point. A lot of the cast have medical or scientific backgrounds, and from what I could find, it looks like you do too. You're a nurse, you've got a lot of medical qualifications, and I saw that you even did some medical consulting for TV and film, which is amazing. So do you think that played a role in you getting your job on the show? And can you tell us a little bit about the audition process?
Yes. So I actually grew up wanting to do film and TV when I was like 8. And then when it came time to go to college, my parents were like, we're not going to pay for you to get a theater degree because you'll have too much fun. I don't know what the reason was, but I was already getting my psychology degree. And my dad was like, there's a really good nursing program at your school. Why don't you look into that? And I thought I wanted to be a sports psychologist. And then I was like, oh, athletes don't really need that much help. And I'm not really one to sit around and sit still and talk to people. So I was like, that sounds cool. And I started taking anatomy and physiology and I fell in love. Like the human body is so amazing. And so I got into nursing school. I finished my psych degree and got into nursing school as well at the same time. And my dad was actually the one who said, you can move to LA, you can work on the weekends and audition during the week as an actor. And that's what I did. So before I moved to LA, I worked in San Diego, kind of a little pit stop there. And I started doing some independent film medical consulting. And then when I moved up to LA, I got connected and started doing TV consulting as well. And so sometimes I play a nurse on TV as an actor. And actually, my first audition for the Pitt was as a patient. It was in episode 1 or 2. And I'm so glad I didn't book that role because then I was contacted to do medical consulting on the show a couple weeks later. And, I told my agent and manager, I was like, oh, I have this opportunity to be on this cool new show. I can't be on it too long because I told the producer, I was like, I can't be on it too long because I can't book out of work for that long. Because when you're on a show, it kind of prevents you from auditioning for other opportunities. So, the producers knew that. They're like, okay, if you can just stay on for like the first 5 episodes or so, because of the continuity aspect, I had to be there every day. And I got to help with medical boot camp, which was so fun to meet all the actors and kind of show them like, okay, this is how you drop meds. This is how you do CPR. This is how you do an assessment. This is how you start an IV and, get vitals. And it's so fun because as an actor, I love to explain it in a way that other actors can get it, that's like, I think helpful to their performance, hopefully. And then it came up that there was this character in episode 4. And, it was first a couple of lines. They came up to me, the producers, and they're like, we know Noah actually knew who my acting teacher was. And we talked about acting a little bit also like in between takes. So he knew I was an actor and knew I'd done plays before as well. And I found out that they were having me like, say some lines. And then come episode 9, there was more to say, more of an interaction with Whitaker. So that I had to audition with casting for, which was fun. That was in person. And
this is after you were already working on the show, doing consulting and background.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is so cool.
Yeah. So it was really kind of a magical way that it came about because I don't know, I was loving life. I was just so happy to be there. It was like the complete marriage of like nursing and acting and consulting. And then when this opportunity came about, it was like, I'm stripping it down more than it was, but like, yeah, it
was just very organic. It just kind of flowed.
Yeah.
Felt like it was kind of meant to be. You were in the right place.
Yeah. And it was luck, huge amount of luck, but I've taken acting classes for years. I've booked other roles that were not nursing roles on other big TV shows. And if I hadn't had all of that and the producers and, the directors hadn't known all that, like, I don't know if it would have happened as organically, but like, because of the work that I'd put in for years,
right,
it all happened and it just felt like meant to be.
That's amazing.
Sometimes luck just is another word to say fate. I mean, it's just like it was your time. It was, you were in the right place. You had the right set of skills.
Yeah.
And that's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that we've talked about with every guest that we've had on. One of the things that I've been so fascinated with all of you guys is once we start digging into your background, how varied your knowledge is, how many different things you all seem to have as skill sets. And we love a lifelong learner. We love people that have broad interests. And so I think that you're right to give yourself the credit that you did all of the hard work and the universe put you in the right place at the right time, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was cool learning about the other cast that had, either medical, like some medical experience or like, with Alexandra, Sasha, her biology background. And then like, Supriya, of course, her, she thought she was going to do pre-med, go to medical school. I mean, and yeah, the cast is so smart and it just makes sense that they picked it up so quick because it was a lot of stuff for them to learn.
Yeah.
What's funny to us is that, like, as we said, you're our third interview. The first one was with Justin Wade, who played the brainwave guy.
Yeah.
He's working on becoming a physical therapist assistant. He has a degree in sports medicine, I believe it is. I mean, so he had some medical background and he said that it never came up in his casting. And Alex, when we talked to her, she said no one ever talked to her about that. So you're the first person that it seems like they initially approached, as far as we know.
Because of.
Right. With the full knowledge that you had a medical background.
Yeah. And it's on my resume because, like my manager will pitch me sometimes specifically for medical shows saying, is a real registered nurse, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes like there are very technical scenes, like had to, I've auditioned for like a paramedic where I'm demonstrating CPR in the audition.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's very helpful for those scenes, for example, where you're coming on scene and you're like, okay, how do I do an assessment of what's going on and then start a new CPR?
Quick question. You mentioned your parents. Do you mind me asking, where are you from? Where did you go to school? Where did you grow up?
So I grew up in Northern California until I went to high school. And I wanted to act, but I got into figure skating instead. My mom's from the Dominican Republic, and she's like, you're not going to become a child star actor. She had heard about like Macaulay Culkin and
yeah,
just like the bad things that could happen, the high pressure. So I got into figure skating because I think my little Delulu brain thought that maybe with figure skating, I could eventually pivot to acting. Like everything I feel like I've done has been to
lead you here.
Yes, because Tara Lipinski had a part on Touched by an Angel. And
yes, she did.
Yeah. So then we moved to Colorado for me to figure skate and also keep me out of trouble because I was a very, I don't know. I was I don't want to say hyper kid, but like, I just didn't, this was the best thing for me to do is to put my energy into figure skating. And
we'll say you're intellectually curious.
Yes. Yeah. And, I did it and I knew I wasn't going to go to the Olympics. I was very reasonable about that. And, once I got old enough, I was like, I'm ready to leave skating behind as like my main focus and finally like go to college and like pursue what I want to do. And that's when I thought I wanted to do sports psychology and then acting, but it ended up being nursing and I was very passionate about it. Still am.
Do you work still as a nurse?
Not very often. I worked during COVID a lot. It actually, when I read the pilot, when I got the script for the Pitt, I read it and I was like, this is like, I had this heavy feeling, like it just felt too real for me. And I was like, I want to work on this show. And I think I'd done a really good job of just burying all my trauma that I had from working during COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Also, like I'll say the show has been very cathartic because I think I realized like, okay, if Dr. Robbie has PTSD,
Yeah.
I probably have PTSD. And it was kind of like, here's permission to acknowledge your trauma.
Sure.
And I know like all the other healthcare workers who, even just working in healthcare in general is traumatic. Like, I just think about the stuff that we see, like, patients, a lot of people go through horrible things, but it's like we go through those horrible things with them.
Right.
And again, the next day.
And that's just every day.
And it's every day. And that's not normal. That's not a normal human experience. Like one person in a year hopefully doesn't experience anything traumatic, but maybe one really sad thing, like, but not multiple every day at work.
Yeah. It's really interesting because that's something that I've brought up the last couple of episodes with our show and in these interviews, is that something that I have a hard time articulating, but I think that you'll understand exactly what I mean, is that, for instance, this mass shooter situation, I keep saying like in other medical dramas, it would just be like a very special episode. But the thing with this is that you've watched these folks see just trauma after trauma. And now you've got a pretty firm grasp on how close to the edge Dr. Robbie, for instance, already is. And then now this happens. And I think it's so much more powerful because you see that even though this would always be a horrible thing for anyone to have to experience, but now you know that these people are already on the, they've already had trauma, and now this is dumped in their laps. Yeah. I can't imagine how you would go through the things you went through without having a good therapist.
Yeah.
It took me like a year or two, and then I started going to therapy, a couple of years ago, like a year or two after COVID really hit, and, started doing like some EMDR, which, I actually did that during figure skating with my sports psychologist.
Really?
Yeah, because the thought was if you have a bad performance, your muscles kind of hold that like trauma. Like if you mess up a jump or whatever, if you go out and perform again, your body might remember like how you messed up that jump in your last performance. So the whole point of like EMDR is kind of, I would feel my muscles twitching when I was remembering that performance. So I already had experience with it. So I was like, okay, I think I should do this for post-COVID. And basically just working in a high stress environment like the emergency movement,
And how does it work out for you?
I think pretty well. I feel, I don't want to say normal, but I feel like pretty
grounded in your body, maybe.
And also, I will say the interesting thing about nursing versus acting, and I had to realize this, I think I realized this during COVID, was that as a nurse, I bury a lot of my feelings like on the shift. So I'll be, talking to patients like a really sad situation, like a new diagnosis will be happening and, the patient's crying. I'm trying to comfort them, but I don't want to like break down in front of them because I think nobody wants their nurse crying more than them, Right. So, I would just like
disassociate almost from your emotions.
And you try to be strong. And then I realized when I was like in acting class or doing auditions for like heavier scenes where you do have to go there, that it was a little bit harder for me. And I was like, oh, this is learned behavior from being a nurse. And actually during COVID, because I saw just so much sad stuff. I think the saddest is just when we had to leave patients by themselves and their loved ones couldn't even come visit because everybody was just, I think that's just so sad. I think like family presence is so important. And because we had masks and all this gear on, I could leave the room and I could just immediately start crying. And like, so I would go to like the clean utility room where our water is and our like refrigerator and stuff. And I would just like let myself like experience things and acknowledge it. And I think it, made me more present as a person and as an actor because I had been like stuffing that person down for so long of working as a nurse.
Yeah, I can't even imagine.
I'm very impressed. We talk a lot about mental health throughout the podcast with the show because it's a big focal point and, making sure you take care of yourself. And I love how open you are about your journey, the things that you've dealt with and the way you work to overcome them. And I always hope when conversations like this happen, that anyone listening, if we can reach out to one person that's like, oh, okay, maybe that would help me too. So thank you for being so open and honest about your experiences. But I do want to ask, you said you were from Northern California. So probably the most important question I'm going to ask in this podcast is, are you a San Francisco 49er fan?
Yes. Yeah.
Me too. Since I was little bitty. I love it. High five.
Yeah. My dad raised me to be a fan. Like, so yeah, I have to be.
Becky was the president of the local Niners club for a while.
Oh,
Yeah, we have
okay.
one here in Nashville. It's quite, I was very surprised at the size of the number of fans that are here, but I guess Nashville's growing. It's become a bit of a melting pot. So we do get a lot of people from California here. So if you ever come, want to watch a game with us,
Okay,
got a
yeah.
cool spot.
Fun. Yeah. Yeah, so gotta support the people that taught me what football was, because I watched hockey because I was a figure skater. And then I tried to play basketball when I was 10, but I was too short.
You're the same height I am, I noticed.
Yeah. And so I think I shot 2 baskets the whole Parks and Rec season.
Well, that's 2 more than I've ever accomplished. So score 1 for the little folks is what I say.
Yeah. But
Thank
we're
you.
fast. We're fast. Don't sleep on us.
We're weirdly fast. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. My husband, when he tries to say, follow me at the mall, he's like, you're just like weaving in and out like this is NASCAR. And I'm like, hey, man, when you've been short your whole life, you learn you got to get around these people or they'll just walk all over you.
Yeah.
Yeah. They'll literally walk on you.
Yeah. All right. So this show has become such a success. And one of our listeners, I hate the Minions, number 1.
I
love
want to
these
know that
names.
story, by the way.
What
I
did
hate the
they do?
Minions.
What
Please,
did they do?
please let me know what they did to hurt you.
You need to chime back in. I hate the Minions one. But they want to know, what's it like working on the number 1 medical drama on TV, and how does this role compare to any of the other TV roles you've had?
Oh, I mean, it's okay. Coming from knowing people in the medical community, like people that I worked with when I was a nurse in San Diego, they're reaching out to me, on social media. They're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so proud of you. Like, I'm watching the show." It's cool. Like, they're just, "Oh, we know you." It's cooler because they knew me as a nurse and now they see me act as a nurse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's just kind of fun like that.
What's the feedback there? Like, as far as realism, how they feel like you're doing with portrayals, like they feel great about it?
Yeah, there was one nurse that I worked with in San Diego. She was like on social media before she knew I was on the show. She was saying, I know the Pitt, they're saying it's so like medically accurate, but I haven't seen one AMA form, which is leaving against medical advice, right? And that's
we got one, didn't we?
We did. And then literally like a week later, she was like, we got an AMA form. It's like, and then there's my former coworker, Ambar. She's being a nurse and she's talking about violence against healthcare workers. Like, this show is everything. So
that's awesome.
So amazing.
It was cool that and she shouted me out too. So yeah, it just feels awesome to be, because I've been there the whole, 7 months we filmed. So it feels just like extra special compared to like, I was on like How I Met Your Father. That was just 1 week of filming and you can kind of meet the cast, but you don't grow as close as when you're with people for like, months and months and months every day. I don't know. It's very special. And to have such a great, John Wells is awesome. Scott Gemmel's awesome, and Noah, like they're just like the best team, and all the people that they like, all the producers that they work with, like it's just everybody's wonderful from the top to the bottom.
Was there anybody that you specifically made friends with that you're close to now that you weren't before? And before you answer that, I want to say that just looking through your Instagram, one of the things that I was really impressed with was that probably most of your shots are with crew. So of everyone on the show, like, is there anyone that you really made a special friendship with?
Oh, I mean, I love the crew because like as a, when I'm a medical consultant, I'm considered crew, and then, gosh, like I love Shabana. She's just I'm so sad she's in Australia right now. I'm like, when are you coming back? And luckily Supriya's moving out here soon too. But Sasha's awesome too. It's just, we're all like, we're going to hang out after this, but this is kind of the period of time after you wrap, you kind of like people go on trips, they go see family.
Life happens.
Yes. Especially, the series regulars, like, no, they're coming back in hopefully June, I guess, is what I've heard. And so, they have to do kind of everything that they can right now. And then And yeah, so I don't know, like I can't really just name like one person.
It sounds like a good family.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I will tell you, like, if you are feeling any type of way about like, are we going to ever get in touch again? You should know that Becky and I have known each other for 30 years. And there's probably been several times that a year or two has gone by before we've seen each other in person. Yeah. And we're still
just pick up right where we left off. Yeah. That's my favorite kind of friendships.
Right. That's special, especially when we've gone through stuff together.
Yeah. Right. And you have a bonding experience like that. I'm sure that you guys will just pick back up again next time you see each other.
Yeah. Well, speaking of bonding experiences, I want to bring up Whitaker. So early on in the season, poor Whitaker and his scrubs took a beating. Yeah. And you were often there to lend a hand. And I remember podcasting this episode, and I told Mandy, I was like, something is going to happen between those two. Those two, there's chemistry. Something is brewing. Yeah. And listener Liberty Saturn agreed with me. And we both want to know, what is up with you two? Is there romance in the air? Can you tell us?
Becky calls you Whitaker's future wife. Just
That's how I introduced you, or segued in that we were going to be interviewing you as like Nurse Kim, aka Whitaker's future wife. So
funny, because like some people picked up on that in episode 4 and some people didn't, and it's funny to play it because at that point, that was mid-August, and I'd been there for like a month and a half, and I felt like pretty comfortable around Jaren. And but like that's really the first time Kim kind of interacts with him, besides being like in a trauma room or just seeing him kind of come by really quick. And I think, well, because Noah was the writer, and when I got the script, I was like, she's into him, right? Like, I'm like, I'm not just like reading him, but like, I'm right. And he's like, yeah, she thinks he's a cutie that's just having a bad day. And I'm like, yeah, that's true. Yeah. He's so like adorable, obviously. Yeah. I can't really say what's going to happen, but
No, you've completely validated me. Mandy has her theories, and I do everything I can to disprove them. And this was one of my theories. And regardless of what happens with hers, I can now say, I was right.
Yes.
We've got a listener that has this whole backstory written for Whitaker, that he is unhoused. And that's part of why he has a hard time with changing scrubs and things like that. So now we just need him to run off into the sunset with Nurse Kim. And
you just want him to have a win, right?
Have a win, have community.
And clean clothes.
Yes.
Nurse Kim's gonna make other people realize like he's hot stuff. Like he's a little hot nerd. Like,
yeah, he is. That's a great description.
Don't sleep on those farm boys. They're so
they're hardworking.
Yeah, right.
Well, Becky, this next question, Becky, I feel like we've already kind of covered it, and I apologize for that.
No, it's okay.
Why don't you just go on into the next one?
Okay. So the show really has done a tremendous job of making sure so many types of people are represented. We keep saying it's one of our favorite things. It's just pretty much everything about the show is our favorite. But from your Instagram page, we see you're a part of, and I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly, Nos Otros.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So do you want to tell us a little bit about that? And what does it mean to you to be able to represent your culture on TV?
Oh, yeah. So Nosotros is basically it was started by Ricardo Montalban, who's a Latino actor. And it's trying to give Latinos a stronger voice in entertainment. Just kind of bringing awareness that the Latino culture, we consume a lot of media, and we should also see ourselves in this media too, because we're a big part of the US culture as well. And yeah, it's cool to see, like, especially on the Pitt, like we have so much diversity, which is so refreshing, just like from all cultures. It's so nice that, and it doesn't have to be a thing. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's not like I'm going in shaking, Dominicans, we don't have maracas.
You're shaking maracas.
Being like, que lo que, like just like saying like things all the time, but like,
I was going to say singing from the heights.
Yeah. Oh my God. Such a good soundtrack.
It is. But right. I see what you're saying. your ethnicity is not the focal. You are represented, and it is just a part of who your character is. It is not the focal point.
Yeah.
And I remember when they had the episode, I don't know if you recall this, but maybe episode 3 or 4, there was a scene where it was Dr. Mohan, Dr. Javadi, and the patient was the girl that was getting the face cream from Korea. And it was three women from the Indian subcontinent.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
And they were all in a scene together. And I remember thinking, like, that must have been so cool that you could just have that scene and nobody is talking about the fact that this is it's because that's life. We are a melting pot, especially in a city like Pittsburgh. That is something that happens probably every single day in medical communities. And then I ended up seeing interview with Supriya. That's the actress that plays Dr. Mohan, correct?
Yeah.
And she brought that up. She had the same thought I did, that like she's just sitting there and they're having this conversation. She's like, man, this is really cool. And I felt really great for her. So
yeah. I'll say coming from Colorado, which is more, I would say, predominantly white, when I moved to LA and San Diego, I was just like, you know, you just notice different cultures more. And like, this doesn't have to be a thing though. You know, it's like, I don't know how to describe it. Like it doesn't have to be a thing.
It's just part of who you are. And you've got other people around you that are just.
Yeah, and you have other people around you. But yeah, it was interesting just like coming from a predominantly white area. And then, I mean, Northern California is also a melting pot, but I kind of had forgotten that. And then when I moved back to California, I was like, oh, it's nice to see the variety. And it doesn't have to be like, we're different. Like we're all just people.
It's normal. I hate to use the word normalized, but it's because, you know, I am a biracial person and I grew up in a predominantly white town.
Yeah.
And it was not normal.
Yeah.
You know, I was looked at, talked about differently. It was a whole lot of issues that came from living there. But when I moved to Nashville, and it was just like, okay, you're
just a person. You're just Becky.
Yeah.
I do understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Well, we have a follow-up question on that. So you're a part of the Plus Me project, and that sounds like an incredible thing to be a part of. So would you please tell our listeners more about that and how you came to be a part of it?
Oh, yeah. So one of my really good friends, Richard, started the Plus Me project partially because he was the first one of his family to go to college. And he realized that kids, like especially high schoolers, kind of need to see basically more representation of people that are doing what they want to do, like in their career, et cetera. Mm-hmm. So what we do is there's many different programs, but like something I participated in last year was Motivational March. And we go to high schools, which was really fun. And we go to a classroom. We tell a story. So we tell a story about a time that we had to be motivated to accomplish something. And I always usually talk about like going from nursing to acting and kind of like also the medical consulting. And a lot of the kids, you know, being in LA are very, surrounded by the arts and creatively minded. So they had a lot of questions about that. But, I talked to them also about how I have ADHD. And until I realized I had ADHD, I kind of thought I was, unfortunately, I thought I was not school. I didn't think I was smart, and it wasn't until I got in college and like, I remember I was in math class and I was really getting it, but like, I was always the last person during tests because I'd be like going through a problem and I would get distracted by something and then I'd have to go back to the problem. And it was so embarrassing for me. So anyway, I didn't know what I wanted to do. But then when I found like nursing and it somehow just like hit that part of my brain that like, this makes sense to me. I can see the human body. Like I can see how the heart is a pump and how it pumps blood to your brain and to the rest of the body. And you know what I mean? Like it
was just all concrete to you, right?
Yes. I needed more concrete versus abstract. Mm-hmm. And once I found out how I learned, it just like, I found out what I needed. And then I also was like, but I also kept my other passion of acting and writing, you know, even if I was never going to do anything big, like be on TV, I could still do plays. I could still do other things to feed my creative side.
Yeah.
You know, it's basically we also teach students how to tell their own story. So ultimately it's geared for them to write their personal narrative for hopefully going to college.
Mm-hmm.
So we go and we try to kind of inspire them with our stories. And their motto is, you have a story, your story matters. And you meet the most incredible kids in this program too, like who have gone through so much stuff, and then they get scholarships that help them go to college. It's a really great program. I can't speak highly enough about it.
Well, that's amazing.
Yeah, I think it's so great that you help them to focus and narrow down exactly what it is that they want. You're talking about ADHD. Like, I've never been diagnosed specifically with ADHD, but I have it. And it's only very recently, because I have a lot of other diagnoses around anxiety and depression. And just recently, it's kind of funny. There's a woman that I do not care for very much who was sitting with me one day, and she's like, well, you have ADHD just like I do. And I didn't like it because she was the one telling me that. And then I started looking into it, reading, and I was like, dang it, that's exactly, yes. And I talked to my therapist, and she was like, oh, you totally do. Yeah. But the reason I'm going back to this is that I want you to, I don't know that you've ever thought about it this way. It's my superpower. I think the reason that you are as successful as you are in such a wide variety of things is that, yes, we are scatterbrained. Like, if I go to wash a dish, I got to walk in the kitchen and I'm going to put the dish in the sink, but then I'm going to realize that there's no napkin. So I go to get a napkin. And when I do, I have to go to the laundry, and I realize that load needed to be put in. And it might be 45 minutes later before I go and actually do the thing that I wanted to do. But with my job, it makes me very successful because I have to be able to switch gears very quickly. And I think it's one of the reasons that I am an intellectually curious person, because my brain is always looking for that next thing.
Yeah, that stimulation, that like, okay, what else?
Right. And while it does make, something like learning algebra very difficult for me, in every other aspect of my life, I think it's a superpower. And I think that that's part of what makes you really good at a lot of things.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it took me a while to realize that. And I had to do a lot of I kind of had to forgive myself as a child, you know what I mean? Because I used to get in trouble for talking. I was like a chatterbox. I had to turn my card. Yeah, they had this thing where you turn your card in front of the whole class, and
that's embarrassing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a teacher pick me up by my collar and hold me above the ground in 6th grade because I couldn't remember to hold my hand up, and I had so much to say all the time. Which is annoying, but maybe that's not the best way to handle it.
Oh, I know. I'm like, do they still do that? I hope not.
Who knows? Tennessee, man, it's the Wild West out here. We don't know what they're doing in schools anymore.
It's like the weather changes every 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're just lucky the schools are open at this point.
Yeah.
So we've talked about the fact that you were a figure skater, and this is a great time to mention that Becky wanted to be a figure skater so badly when she was younger.
I had visions.
I am learning today, right?
You didn't know that?
No, ma'am. I had no idea.
You know the song Desert Rose by Sting?
Your song, Olympic song.
And in my head, I have a flawless,
triple Lutz,
super expert routine. I could never make that come to fruition, but in my head, and one of my kids, Connor, bought me the world's greatest ice skater magnet that still sits on my fridge. So I'm a little jealous of what you've accomplished there. But anyway, go ahead.
Becky, now I'm going to just sidebar. Now I'm picturing you and I, because I wanted to be a square dancer. I didn't actually want to be a square dancer. There was a square dance store in my little neighborhood outside Nashville, and they had these beautiful floofy dresses in the window. And I wanted to be in the floofy dress. So now I'm picturing our menopausal asses like in some kind of coordinated routine.
I think it's going to happen.
We need to make that happen. Yes.
Do you watch Modern Family?
Yeah.
The Claire and what's his face?
And Mitchell.
Mitch doing their no, not Mitchell. Yeah, Mitchell.
Yeah.
Their routine.
That's gonna be me and
Halloween, you should do the Blades of Glory costume.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Fire and Ice. Yeah.
Yes, that is it. We're doing it. And I'm glad you brought up Halloween, because I noticed that you, like us, you seem to love Halloween.
I love Halloween. I love horror.
We saw that you quoted Nadja.
Yes.
Do you know that was how we got started in our podcast?
We covered the final season of What We Do in the Shadows. That's where we got started.
That's so awesome.
Well, we were so like, we knew this was fated when we saw that. She was like, we were like, she's definitely cool. And then the pole dancing, I have to tell you, that's the part that I am like super impressed with. My husband and I years ago went to Mexico on vacation, and we went to this big nightclub that had like 7 different stages with people doing different things. And they had pole dancers, and it was the most amazing thing I have ever seen in my life. You people have muscles that I don't have.
So I started doing it, during the writer's strike, I was like I was like low key depressed.
Sure. How could you not be?
Yeah. Like nothing was happening or like so I've been thinking about pole dancing for a while, and I still do figure skating a little bit just in case there's a role that, like one time I actually had a commercial audition and I had to skate. It was for Old Navy.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't book it. I almost booked. Well, I was close. I was pinned. So I keep it up just in case, but it's not as easy to get to an ice rink.
Sure.
And sometimes I don't like to be cold and sometimes you know what I mean?
That would be my big drawback.
Right? Yeah. So I was like, I'm just gonna go. There's like one like really close to me, and I fell in love. And like I've always had really weak upper body strength, but I tell you, like now when I do roles that require me to lift a gurney, I feel like I can freaking do it. Basically, we do this exercise. You squeeze your inner thighs and you pull yourself up on the pole with your just your arms, and then you squeeze again and then you climb all the way up the pole. It's kind of like in gym class, like where you had to climb up the rope,
right?
Except you don't really have your legs to help you. You're pulling up and then squeezing, so you stay there, and then you pull up again, and so like it's hard and
it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
The routines that I saw was a couple, and it truly blew my mind. Like I didn't know the human body was capable of doing things like that and making it look so beautiful. That's why I say you have to have muscles that I don't have.
I mean, you can make those muscles. Like that's like,
yeah, you're so cute.
If you want to. So like the first class, the instructor, she was like, all women can do this because all women have done this. And I was like, oh, you're right. And what was cool though, is like at the wrap party for the Pitt, they had these girls up on the ceiling in scrubs. They weren't really on a pole. Yes. It's if I can find it, I'll probably post it, especially on the finale, because I got they were amazing. But they're wearing scrubs and they're on the huge, like, I don't know if they were like, they're decorative balls, and they're just like kind of doing pole poses.
Right.
So pretty and acrobatic.
It's
and
beautiful.
Then, yeah. I was like, wow, how do I apply to do that?
Yeah. Well, that's another one of your skill sets. And also, you have a strong background in comedy. We see that you were I think the Groundlings was
Upright Citizens Brigade.
Upright Citizens Brigade. So out of all of the things, all of your skill sets, is there something that you enjoy the most? Is there something that you find the most rewarding?
Ooh, I think, gosh, I feel like the most challenged by comedy. And I think it's because when I came to LA, I was told, if you can do comedy, you can do anything. You can excel at drama, but like not a lot of dramatic actors are good at comedy. Because comedy is really about the rhythm. It's such an equation. Like sometimes you can say this line one way, and because of an inflection or because of an emphasis on something else, it can either get a laugh or it just doesn't hit. It's so interesting. I find that it's like hard to perfect, which naturally makes me want to do it, because I'm like, let me just see like if I can just, I don't know.
It's the challenge.
Yeah, it's a challenge.
That's why there's not a lot of John C. Reillys or Meryl Streeps.
Yes.
I would imagine it requires a certain level of unself-consciousness. Like you have to be willing to be stupid. You have to be willing to fail, to fall on your face, to look dumb.
Yeah. And I think, I would never do stand-up comedy. I'll say that, because that's like, that to me feels too, like, I like playing other characters. Like, I don't really, obviously I'm fine talking about myself right now because y'all are so easy to talk to, but like,
oh, thank you.
Yeah. But like, naturally, I don't like talking about myself to strangers. And
I get it.
No, you don't. We talk about ourselves to anyone that'll listen.
I did a game show. Gosh, what? It was during the pandemic? No, I don't even know. It was like, yeah, I think it was. My friend, he got 3 of us to audition for this game show. I don't even know what it's called. I don't think it's around anymore. But we drove out to Vegas. We were on it. And he thought because of my medical knowledge, it was like a trivia game show. We all said quick. And I'm not a quick person. I'm quick, but like not in the moment. Like pressure's on me. I'm going to just like,
I know what you mean. Yeah.
I'm going to think a million thoughts about how the pressure's on me, but not about the question.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and you had to talk. Yeah, I just was so awkward. I was like, oh, I hate this. I hate this. Like, and we, didn't win any money. And I was like, okay, like if I won money, at least I'd be like, okay, this was worth me feeling like the most awkward person ever. But yeah, so, being myself, I don't know, I guess either don't restrict me and let me be fully myself or let me be another character completely. You know what I mean?
Yes, that's it.
That was brilliant.
Yes, it's the artificial part that I'm just like, I don't want to think about like if I say the right thing. And I think what's refreshing about the podcast is like partially I'm like, oh, I know you're not seeing my face right now. And so it feels a lot more freeing that I can just like be looking off into space, but like thinking thoughts, you know what I mean?
Yeah, we do know.
Perfect. Yeah.
We absolutely do know. We usually do this podcast with like, have my hair. I always wear these space buns, but look, you'll have one hanging down and, no bra.
Haggard. Haggard is the word I like to use to describe us when we podcast.
Haggard works. Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
So before we go, a couple of things. First is, where can listeners find you? And I know we talked about some of your projects, but is there anything in the works that you want to tell us about so we can direct our listeners there?
I just booked a supporting role in a feature that's going to be filming in a couple of weeks. And then yeah.
Exciting. Text us when you know about it and we'll share it.
I'll just say that it's a holiday film, which I've always wanted to be in. And it's like an action film too. So I think it's going to be really fun.
Well, my husband will love that. I think his favorite movie last year was that Christmas movie that The Rock did.
Okay, nice.
Yeah. He loves Christmas and action movies. So he was like, this is my favorite genre ever.
Yeah. I'm so excited for it. And we're filming out of town. So I'm like pumped. Yeah.
Sweet.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah. And then, I guess on Instagram at Ambar Agogo, which is basically, it just means I'm always on the go.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Y'all have got some great Instagram names, I will say.
Yeah. Yeah. We're impressed.
Alexandra's with her matzo ball soup.
Yeah. That's so cute. Yeah. Love it.
If it's okay with you, we'll make sure to put your Instagram post in the show notes, but I'm also going to add the Plus Me project.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, the Plus Me project would be great because, like, also for people, if they also want to volunteer, it's just really cool because they teach you how to construct a story that's like a concise story, and then you go and you talk about it, but it's like a very low stakes environment. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
that's great. Well, we got a note from a listener. We always put out, and Carly with the Pitt fan page is great to put out question boxes for us when we know we're going to be interviewing someone. And so we pick a few listener questions. But this listener didn't have a question, but I thought it was very sweet. So I wanted to read you what they said. It's at A Noble Battle wrote, no question, but just wanted to say hi and please tell her she's amazing and happy to see her on both 911 and the Pitt.
Yeah, the 911 fans are really great. They're they're like, that fandom is, if the Pitt can reach a fandom like 911, and I feel like it's getting there.
Yeah,
we'll be so blessed because those fans are diehard and they've also been so supportive. And
there's a 911 Nashville in
yes,
talks.
I was going to tell you that when you told me that, I was like, oh, yeah.
You call us if you happen to get on that.
Okay, we'll do.
We'll let you take us out to eat. No.
No, I haven't been in Nashville.
You're the only person left in this country that has not been to Nashville yet.
I know. I'm kind of a loser in that way.
No, it is crowded here, girl.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a couple of friends that moved out there like a year or so ago. Actually, one's in nursing school now, which is so cute. She used to work as a production assistant. And she's like, "Hey girl, I'm going out to nursing school." And then I have another friend that I knew her from figure skating, and she's going to nursing school too. So like a couple of them are a little inspired, which was awesome. And then they're also watching the show, which is cool.
That's very cool. Yeah. Well, you got to get out here.
Yeah.
And tell your friends that are watching the show to check out our thrillingly amazing podcast.
I will. You guys are fun. So
thank you so much. Well, we really greatly appreciate you being here with us. I know, your Instagram name says it all. You're constantly on the go. So it really does mean a lot when people will take the time to just come and chat with us. And the listeners love it and enjoy hearing just a little bit about your personal lives as well as your professional lives. So we so appreciate it. And again, I'll make sure to post links to your social media pages so your listeners can follow you and keep up with what's going on.
Thank you.
Well, that wraps up our interview with the awesome Ambar Martinez. We are going to be back soon to continue our coverage of the Pitt. Oh, tonight's the last episode.
I know I'm not ready, but
I am not ready. Yeah.
At all. Really good. There's a performance from Noah that just really spoke to my core as a nurse. That like I was watching him behind the monitor, and I was crying. And
I'm already tearing
as
up.
if we didn't cry enough last week. Great, thanks.
I know, but I just it just hit me in my soul. Like, yeah.
I can't wait. I'm so pumped. This is like the way that they've filmed this has just like ratcheted up the excitement every single week. So I can't wait.
It's all of you all that if you guys don't win all the Emmys, especially for ensemble cast, we may riot.
Yeah, for sure.
We riot at dawn. No, it's good.
Yeah,
that's right.
Well, maybe like 12:30.
Yeah, right. I could do dawn because I'll be up with the hot flashes, but I'm going to need a nap about 9:30 a.m. So
okay,
we have to wrap her up.
Well, we want to thank everyone so much for listening. I'm Becky.
And I'm Mandy.
And I'm Ambar.
We'll catch you next week when we grab the remote and see what's on tonight. Bye.